Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Lorimar, and today I'm going to show you how I make Vejigante masks. I am not a mask artisan or a mask making professional, but I wanted to create this video because there is not very many tutorials out there on this process. So I'm going to start off by putting a layer of tin foil over a mask mold that I created out of a bleach bottle and concrete. And if you would like to see how I did that, just let me know in the comments section below and I'll make a separate video on that. Next, I'm going to go ahead and cut up some strips of brown craft paper that I bought at Michael's. Now, traditionally, you could use brown craft paper and or newspaper. They both work wonderful for different reasons. The newspaper is very pliable, receives the glue well, and is smoother in application. The craft paper is stiffer, and therefore you need to put less layers of paper on your mask to have a more stiff and structured mask. So it really depends on you. You can use both. You can use one or the other. You also do not have to cut your paper into strips. You can tear it and you tear it into pieces. Next, I show you the glue paste that I use. Now, the glue paste that I use is made out of flour, water, and a little bit of Mod Podge. There are many different recipes, and you can look them up online. This is what I prefer to use. I honestly don't even measure the flour to water ratio. I just kind of eyeball it. What you do is you cook it over the stove until it is like the consistency of like yogurt, and you pull it off the stove, let it cool off, and that is the glue that I'm using for this paper mache mask. Next, you will see me putting on the layers of paper mache onto the mold. Something that I've learned is that the less glue that you put on the paper, the better the mask is overall structurally. You just want to make sure that the paper is slightly moist. You do not want the mask sopping wet in the glue, because what happens is that it will not hold its structure very well, and it'll take a very long time to dry, and then it tends to wrinkle quite a bit. So for a smoother mask application, I would say just very lightly moisten the paper, and even the last layer of paper that you put on the mask should be almost dry, and that helps absorb some of the moisture from the underneath layers. I personally like to remove my mask from the mold while it is still wet, but you can leave it on there until it's dry and then remove it. That is on you. Next, you are going to see me put tin foil on my horn mold. So this is an actual animal horn. I believe it's like it's like a bull horn or a buffalo horn. I will put a link to it in the description. I actually bought this off of Amazon, but you can find different animal horns on Amazon and on Etsy and different platforms. So you kind of have to figure out what is going to work best for you. This was the more reasonably priced option that I could find online. This animal horn is kind of short, it's only 10 inches long, so I do build out the top of the horn with some tape to make it a little bit longer and a little bit pointier, but that is a preference of mine. Something you want to make sure is that the tin foil is, you can remove the tin foil, like slip out the horn easily from the tin foil. Like it can release easily, as you can see there. The reason you want to do that is if this mold does not release easily, you will have wasted your time, and you'll have to rip this whole paper mache off of the horn. So just make sure that the horn inside of this tin foil is easily, like, can slide out easily. As you can see here, I am applying the paper mache onto this mold. You can do it whatever direction works best for you. You only need about 2 layers of paper mache on the horn, and you need approximately 4 to 6 layers on the mask mold. And the reason you want 4 to 6 on the mask mold is so that it's very stiff and structured. The horn, you do not need as many, because it's a smaller item and it's you don't need it. But if you want to, you can put more layers. That is up to you. So here I am 24 hours later. I let this mask dry, and it was completely dry, so I was able to pull out all of this tin foil from the inside of the mask. This is something I like to do because these are things that I'm going to sell and I want it to look very professional. So you're gonna take out that tinfoil. I also clean up the edges of the mask. And next I'm going to take the horns. Here I am messing around. Oh, no, actually next I'm going to cut the mouth out of the mask. So you can cut the mouth out of the mask a couple of different ways. The way I'm doing here is that I am cutting the bottom third of the mask off, and then I'm going to reattach it with tape and more paper and glue. You can also just draw the design of the mask or the mouth out and then cut it out with an X-Acto knife. Whichever way you like is better. This was the first time me doing it this way, and I think I actually prefer the X-Acto knife way only because it's a little less work in the end. But the benefit of cutting the bottom third out and reattaching it is that you get a larger mouth. And you can fit more teeth and it looks a little bit more animated, but whatever you decide, works for you. It's your mask. And I guess while we're here, I do want to mention that everything that I learned on how to make Vejigante masks, I've picked up from different mask artisans on YouTube, on Instagram, and just like reading as much information as I could online. The reason I wanted to make this tutorial was that there isn't very many tutorials on how to make Vejigante masks, and B, a lot of the tutorials and information I found was in Spanish, and not everybody that is a part of the Puerto Rican diaspora speaks Spanish, read Spanish, understand Spanish. So I just wanted to make a tutorial in English for those of us that, well, I do read and speak Spanish, but for the rest of us that don't, I just wanted to give them another resource. So all the information that I have found, all of the mask artisans that I found and videos that I have found, I will link in the description, and you can go and watch those yourself, and you can pick up more tips and tricks from those amazing artisans. So yeah, here I am. As you can see, I am attaching paper mache to where I reattached the mouth of this Vejigante. Now here it is the next day, 24 hours later. So before each step, you gotta let these pieces dry completely. So it's the next day. I am going ahead and I'm cutting notches out into the horns, and you want to make these notches less than half an inch wide and less than half an inch high up onto the horn. And the reason you don't want these notches to be too wide or too tall is that ultimately you can end up ripping the horn when you're trying to place it on the mask, and you don't want to waste any of your hard work. So these smaller notches I find work better. And so here you can see me messing around with the placement of the horn. You'll also see here that I drew out where I would have placed the eyes. I ended up not placing eyes on this mask for purely artistic reasoning. Like, it was an artistic choice not to put the eyes because these masks are for display, and they're for an art show that I had, and so I decided not to put eyes. But if you are using it practically, like you wanted to wear the mask, you would make the eye holes before you attach the horns, just so that it's easy for you to cut them out. And then you'll see me here placing the horns, figuring out the direction, and then using masking tape to attach them. So I like to use this beige masking tape because it's a little less sticky than the blue masking tape. So it won't tear the paper underneath if you decide you need to rip up the horn to relocate it. So yeah, with this mask, I decided to put 5 horns. You can put as many or as little horns onto these Vejigante masks as you want. I've seen people not only make horns like in this horn shape, but they've actually used like cardboard and made different horn shapes out of cardboard and then paper mached it on top. So that's another option for you. This is just the style that I chose. And here you can see I'm showing you how the horns are attached. Next, I'm going to put another layer of paper mache onto where all of that tape is located. So first I'm going to cut some paper out. And these strips I make a little bit thinner only because they need to wrap around the horns than the first, but honestly, whatever method works best for you with the shape, length, size of the paper. That's really a personal decision. And so one more thing I want to note is that the glue paste that you make, unless you're putting some kind of preservative in it, it will go bad on you. So keep in mind when you're making this glue paste, how much you are making, because if you make too much and try to, store it without putting a preservative in it, it will rot on you and your house will smell. And that's just something that I learned the hard way, and I just wanted to share that information with you. As you can see me here, I'm attaching the glue and the paper to cover all of where the masking tape is. I want to cover every square inch of where the masking tape is. I mean, not only does it make it, sturdier, but it's just keeps things really smooth. And you're also adding another layer of paper mache, so the whole mask will be a little bit sturdier and stiffer because you've done this step. And honestly, depending on how you finish the mask, you want it to be sturdy and smooth. I end up finishing this mask in a very non-traditional way, but traditionally people paint them with acrylic paint. And so you want the mask to be really smooth if you're going to go for a painted finish. No, here I am struggling a little bit. And so yeah, guys, this is part 1 of how I make Vejigante masks. I am going to let this dry at least 24 hours before I move on to the next step. Here's a picture of my beautiful grandmother holding a dry mask. So yeah, thank you guys. I hope that was really informative. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments, and I hope you subscribe if you want to see more to Puerto Rican arts and crafts.